The reason we talk about digital selling is all about how to meet the modern buyer. So the modern buyer is digitally driven, socially connected, and mobile empowered. That means that the modern buyer calls the shots. The center of power has shifted from sellers to buyers. So in order to sell today, businesses need to be able to build trust and rapport with buyers from a distance using digital tools. Share content, influence buyers, get them to like you. A buyer will decide when they want to talk to a salesperson. It used to be sales guys would go bang, bang, bang. I'm here, I'm selling, and you're buying. That day is long gone. And if you're still doing it, wonderful. I'm delighted for you, but get ready for a shift. The world is changing very, very quickly. So not only do we have the modern buyer, on multiple devices, working across multiple networks, looking to receive content, education, and influence before you even have a conversation with them. We have a multiplicity of buyers and influencers inside every single organization. So on average, we've got 5.4 influencers inside the modern buying organization. So now you see how this problem is beginning to multiply. Multiple devices, multiple channels, and multiple buyers. So the world has changed, and digital selling tools, analytics, strategies is the way to address that. So our next slide basically tells us that we need better tools. I just want to get some idea of how people are thinking about sales right now. Maybe get a show of hands of who's using LinkedIn, for example. Wow, okay, great. Twitter? Super. Instagram? Pinterest? And who is using telephone and email? Absolutely. And telephone and email are not going to go away. But the current era is social selling. It is LinkedIn and Twitter, Instagram and Pinterest. And for those who are very savvy, those social sellers, the evangelists we saw on the earlier slide, Jill Rowley, we know that it's moving beyond social selling. So the future is already coming. So what seems like a modern era, social selling, is already transforming to a new era called digital selling. And what that means is that we will use hundreds of different channels in order to sell. The idea is that you reach your buyer where your buyer hangs out. So there's no point in having, for example, a LinkedIn profile if your buyers are not using LinkedIn. There's no point in being on Instagram if your buyers are not there. So we need to use a lot of different channels, blend them all together, optimize them, and have efficient sales processes to meet the modern buyer. So we have developed tools to address this problem. And a sales rep, sales teams, can log into our platform and run keyword searches. So for example, bio keywords, what people say about themselves, or conversational keywords. What are they talking about on social media? What signals are they leaving as to their propensity to buy certain products and services, location, etc. So a sales rep runs a search and he gets search results. You see here on this particular shot that the first guy on that list is Joe Blogs. So our system has returned, in this case, 279 prospects in the London area for CTO. Joe Blogs is displayed with his interests. So our system has collected his interests and displayed them to the sales rep. In the center column, you will see the digital channels that he's active on. Now what that means is that our system has identified that Joe Blogs, CTO in London, has got activity on these channels. That means you can click through those channels, see what signals he left on those channels, and start a social conversation with him. And don't forget the idea of this, is to build trust and rapport. You're not trying to sell anything, you're trying to build trust and rapport. Get trust of the buyer. Get the buyer into a state of mind whereby he will call you and say, right, I want to buy from you. On the left-hand column, you'll see where you can rank Joe up or rank him down. If you rank him up, That tells our system that he is a good prospect for you, and therefore the system will start looking for similar prospects to him and start serving them up to you. If you rank him down, the system will ignore him. You've also got an option there to watch Joe. What that means is that the data analytics will work in the background and watch his social media activity every single day. And when something happens, you will get a trigger to stop here. I'm sorry it's not displaying. With that signal that you need to reach out to Joe. So maybe Joe got promoted and suddenly he's got a bigger budget. Or he has announced that the company wants to buy something new. Or perhaps he left the company. Therefore you don't want to be wasting your time working on Joe. So these signals are sent to you in real time, and they can be pushed to mobile phones as well. So at the bottom then, we see that we have all of these data feeds, and if we click on the data feeds, we see that we have company news that Joe is working for. That is a conversation starter. So let's say a new piece of news comes out today, our system picks it up, it serves it into his account, and you can start a conversation. We see there that we have conversational keywords, so you can search his Twitter feeds, find out what he's talking about, what's going on with him. It may be professional or it may be personal, where you've got some signals, pieces of information from which you can start a conversation and start building trust and rapport with Joe. Similar prospect is where the system has recognized you interacting with this prospect and with this company, and therefore it's serving you up other similar prospects inside that organization. That's really important because we need to be reaching out to 5 or 6 different buyers in every single organization. And then finally, sales paths. Sales paths is where the system identifies the optimal route to reach Joe. Who does he know? Who do you know in common? What path should you go down to get to him? Should you contact 2 or 3 of his college friends that you might know better? So the system is working intelligently to identify those targets for you and serve them up to you. So from there, we can move on to the 5 pillars of social selling. So now, looking at the last slide, we've got a lot of data. We've got hundreds, or even in some cases, thousands of prospects and buyers. We've got a lot of data and a lot of information, but it's being condensed and it's very, very relevant. So in order to manage how you do your digital selling or your social selling, we've got the 5 pillars of social selling. Number 1 is personal credibility. Personal credibility is number 1 for a reason. Your credibility as a salesperson is absolutely critical. And I don't mean to say that you are publicizing that you're a great guy, you do a great job, or you've got a great company, or great products and services. That's not what personal credibility means in a sales context. What it means is that you're displaying very clearly to the buyers what you can do for them, what value you can offer them. And I so often see LinkedIn profiles that are written like a resume, a description of what I've done. And that's great, but that will not influence a buyer. You must be saying to the buyer online in all of your communications what's in it for them, what value you offer them, what cost savings. It's not a description of your products and services. Number 2 is always be connected. Now that sounds obvious. Yes, of course, we should always be connecting, we should always be networking. But always be connecting is taken to a different level means the following. Sometimes we have one contact inside an organization. It's called a single-threaded approach. What happens if that contact leaves? It's gone. What happens if that contact wants to talk to his colleagues about who he should buy from? You haven't been in contact with his colleagues. So the idea with social selling and digital selling is that you have a multi-threaded approach, whereby you are influencing 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe 10 influencers inside every single organization, so that you've built up trust and rapport with several influencers. Because remember, you can't get at them directly in the modern buying world. They're going to come to you. Buyers are 80% down the line with their buying journey before they actually engage with a salesperson. So therefore, imagine a scenario whereby the buying committee are out for a beer on a Friday evening, or they're having dinner, and suddenly they all realize collectively that, gosh, you heard from Kevin? You heard from Kevin. I've got a relationship with him. And suddenly, collectively, we all realise that is the organisation we should be dealing with. They've built trust and rapport with us. They've gone down different channels. We know them now. We like them. We want to call them in for a sales meeting. Social listening, getting more and more important. And this is the era that we're at right now. The tool I just showed you from Connectors is a social listening tool. It's all about listening, watching what's going on with your buyer, with your target buyers, with your prospects. And when you get signals as to their activity, then you act on those signals. Reach out and start social conversations with them. And finally, measurement. Really, really important in this era because there is so much data, so much big data going on, and it takes time for a digital selling program to kick in. But it will kick in, I can assure you. So measurement all along the way is very important. And just, I think on the next slide I can show you some measurement tools. Here is my LinkedIn profile, my social selling index, which is at 95, and this was taken a couple of months ago. And you see there, I've got rankings across 3 different categories in the top 1%. That happened for a reason. I religiously followed social selling principles every day for 3 months. I moved it from, I think it was 85 to 95 over a 3-month period. But the point I'm trying to make is that all of the social media tools we talked about, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, etc., have metrics inside of them. You can track your activity. It's just a case of activating them. And very often it's a case of understanding what they have to offer for you. Therefore, don't ignore them. Embrace the metrics that's offered on these tools. Because if you can measure what you're doing at different levels, you'll ultimately come to a point of having success. Don't get me wrong, the ultimate goal of all of this is to make sales and put cash into your bank. But it must be done in a strategic way. It must be done from the point of view of putting the buyer in control and letting the buyer decide that you are the right guy for them to talk to. So here's a quick case study. I think this is the last slide. Over a 3-month period, we took our product, Connectors, and we pushed it to the market. We used a number of different channels. A famous CEO of Oracle Corporation once said, we must eat our own dog food. So we did eat our own dog food. We used our own tool to do a digital selling program, and this was the outcome. So what's going on here is that we attempted to connect with 2,100 prospects. Our ideal customer is a sales director inside a multinational company, or a sales director or a business owner inside a small and medium enterprise. People like ourselves here. We work with both sides. The problem is the same across both categories. And we sent a message to them, and we got a really good response. 77% of who we targeted connected with us. That was really high. So we looked at why it was so successful. And the message we sent was, we weren't trying to sell anything. We said, hey, Mr. Sales Director, we have done 2 years research into digital selling. We know the future. We've collected a lot of data. And we would like to share that information with you for free. Not only that, we're very credible. We've worked with 2 research institutions. We're supported by data scientists, and this information is very credible. That's it. So we were giving something away for free that was very credible. And we got a 77% connection rate. From there, we got engagements. So engagements is when people start replying to you. And moving down to replies and then on to conversations. So conversations is when we had several threads of conversation going on with prospects. You will notice there that with the conversations were across many different channels. So don't forget, we reached out on LinkedIn, but the conversations developed across many, many different channels. So when the conversation got exhausted on LinkedIn, we switched it to another channel. So for example, we found that one guy stopped talking on LinkedIn, then we found he had a video on YouTube. We liked the video, we started a conversation there. Then moved it to Twitter and kept the conversation going. So the conversion rates on that were very, very high in terms of trials. And we had 71% trials. And that point there, the conversations to trials, 71% conversion, proves the point around social media conversations around digital selling. That if you build up that trust and rapport across many, many different networks, you will get to your trials. And I would say a trial is an opportunity. You're into sales territory then. And you will notice there as well that telephone calls, as you move down, they begin to pick up. And I know many of you put up your hand when I asked about the telephone call. So the telephone's not going away, it's just the timing of the telephone. And it's the timing of the email. You don't start with them, you finish with them. You use social media to get the opportunity to pick up the phone. Use social media to get the opportunity to send the email. And once you get that opportunity, you're well down the line in terms of engaging in a proper sales conversation.